So hello again. I think we can start now. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be a moderator for this discussion, which, as all we know, took place in online regime because of COVID-19 and the situation the virus made to all of us around the world. And I hope you and your family members are all healthy and safe through these unusual times. First of all, I would like to thank the Caucasus Civil Initiative Center, which brought together qualified researchers, also the persons from state institutions, and devoted time to discuss such an important issue as social reform policies in our region. And I will talk a little about the project Confidence Building for Social Policy Reforms in the South Caucasus, which aims to build confidence between expert communities of Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. And on behalf of Black Sea Trust, I would like to thank them for their financial support for this project. And may I introduce your distinguished panelists. I am Mr. Azer Dilanchiev, an assistant professor at International Black Sea University, and Mrs. Mira Antonyan, associate professor, Faculty of Sociology, and chair of social work and social technologies at Armenia State University. And Mr. Zohrab Ismayil, who is Ph.D. candidate and Hubert Humphrey Fellow. And it gives me also a great pleasure to introduce you Mr. Vaja Japoshvili, who is Deputy Director of Pension Agency of Georgia. Thank you for taking your time. It's always honor and pleasure to involve people from state agencies as well. Before we start the presentations, I would like to talk a little bit about our topic. And as we all know, the attendees of this discussion, so since the collapse of Soviet Union, the social protection systems in the whole region in South Caucasus went through difficult stages and levels and challenges. And the poverty and unemployment remains a huge challenge among these countries. And I would like to thank again to the organization to brought us together to discuss this important issue. And Mr. Azer, our first speaker will be Mr. Azer, who will introduce his presentation about social protection system of Georgia. Mr. Azer is an assistant professor at International Black Sea University, as I said already, and his research interests center around the regional economic integration and macroeconomics, entrepreneurship, and child mortality, as he said to me. So the floor is yours. You can start your presentation. And
okay, thank you very much for giving me floor and for the interesting, I hope there will be today interesting discussion. I made a small research about the social protection system in Georgia. I would like to share my findings, some general points about this research with you. I would like to share now, wait a minute, please. Let me share my screen. Hope you can see the screen now.
We can see the screen. So.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me start. I will be very brief, and hopefully later on we'll go in the questions. I will go in a little bit more deep inside of some issues that are more interesting for you. First of all, as Ms. Gvnatsa already mentioned, social protection system according to International Labor Organization is just, from the world population, just 45% of the world population now enjoys at least from one type of the social protection system, while the remaining part, which is the 55% of the world population, are unprotected, which is, you know, a huge problem. If the social protection system will be good designed and implemented, of course it can reduce the poverty, and not only the poverty, but also it can positively influence to unemployment and the other social spheres. You know, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we all, South Caucasus countries, passed through some challenges, and the social protection system was not ideal, and still it's not ideal. After the independence, there were attempts to create somehow to develop own social protection system, but still there was some problems. Concerning the case of the Georgia situation, a little bit changed after our integration with the European Union. You know, Georgia is one of the member of the European Neighborhood Partnership Program, and they have their own NAP action plan. According to this NAP action plan, so European Union gives special agenda through which Georgian government implements. And we can say that after this implementation program, now our Georgian social protection system, step by step, we are trying to go closer to the European system. Now, despite of the changes, and I mean, I can say the positive changes, still there is some debates. For example, in Georgia, that methodology totally changed. As I already mentioned, we are approaching closer to the European Union system, but among the population, there is still a critic over the new social protection system of Georgia. And this criticism basically divided into three categories. One part of the population, they are criticized the new social protection system, and they claim that it is too unfair. I mean, the division of the people who should take the social protection and who not, they claim that it's not unfair. The second component, the second part of the people, they criticize the social protection system, and they say that they are unjustly withdrawn from the social assistance system. You know, in Georgia, we have the methodology. According to this methodology, the agents of the social protection system, they're giving different kinds of points to the families, to the households, and based on these points, they are deciding does the households or the family deserve social assistance or not. So the second category, they criticizes this component, that it is unjustly. And the third component is very interesting, and they say that, you know, this social assistance, this, I mean, the huge social assistance, later on I will show you the statistics, it brings to the degradation and unwillingness to work, because they say that, okay, anyway, I will take the social assistance, and it decreases, I mean, their willingness to work or to find the work. So this is actually some creates some challenges, and now there is a debate over these three categories of the population. Now, what we should be mentioned, as you may read from the slide, that social benefits shouldn't be equal to or greater than the potential, I mean, the living standard. So in Georgia, there is some living standard, and if it is above that, of course, it discourages people to find new job places. So from that side, it is a little bit a strange issue. If you are giving too much social protection, you know, it discourages the person to look for the job place. Now I would like to talk about a little bit the problems. So in Georgia, we have currently, it consists, our social protection system consists of the two components. One is the targeted social assistance, and another is old age pensions. In total, it is roughly 700 70,000 person who gets the social protection. If I'm not making mistake, 40,000 they are old age pensioners, and the remaining are getting different kinds of the social assistance. And what's the problem is that so as I already mentioned, after the receiving the social assistance, the system makes the person that they're taking the social assistance, but they are still in the same situation. They are not going out from the being vulnerable or being the poor. I mean, social protection just simply keeps the status quo situation, or it's just enough to keep them physically. Okay, this social protection system does not take them out into new level. I can say like this, one thing is just when you are, government gives you the fish and you are eating it. And another thing is just government teach you how to catch the fish, and then you independently yourself are catching the fish and you becoming independent. Now, right now, the system we have in Georgia is just simply maintains the status quo situation. I mean, it just preserves the people not to die from hunger or somehow live. Okay, these are the problems that we have got. Now, here on this slide, you may see the statistics on the expenditure on the social protection. So as you may see, each year our social protection system, money just spent from the GDP is growing. And in 2019, we achieved 9.5% of the GDP. So in our GDP, 9.5% totally spent on the social protection. And this tendency is growing. And of course, it is from one side, it is good, because more people are getting protected and etc. But from another side, this tendency, it's not good. And each year, the amount of the people who need the social protection is growing and growing, and it is later on will negatively influence to the economy. As I already mentioned, the solution should be just taking these people out from this social assistance program, not because the number or the points are not enough, but simply give them some job places or create some condition for them so that they will not be dependent on these social protection problems. Now here you may see the Gini coefficient that measures the gap between the rich people and the very poor people. You may see that despite of the fact that from the GDP, as you may see, a lot of money is spent on the social protection, but if we look to the Gini coefficient that shows the level of the poor people and rich people, we will see that there is no big changes here. Only in 2018 we have a slightly drop, but the tendency is the same, as you may see, despite of the fact that the social assistance program, there's a lot of money spent, but situation does not change dramatically. And this is of course the problem. Now, I would like to share some findings that I've got during this research. Of course, I am not going in the deep inside of all these issues. Just a little bit about the findings that I find. The first findings, as you may see, despite the reforms in the social protection sphere in Georgia, I already mentioned about these reforms that we are going closer to European Union social protection system. It was found that the accumulation of the administration of many social services in one organization plays as a drawback for the whole system. Imagine that whole the social protection system is concentrated in one administration. And of course, it creates some bureaucratic barriers, okay? It would be better to re-centralize the system. This is one of the findings that we found. Another thing is that the amount of the money transferred in decline based on the level of inflation. So I already showed you how much money is spent, but another thing is that what about inflation? Yeah, you are giving social protection, it is good, but from another side, inflation is going up, everything price is going up. And I will return back to the second argument, second findings. Thanks God now in Georgia, this problem, we can say that already solved. I will a little bit talk about this one, but while I was doing this research, this problem was existed. So I mean, the pensions and the social assistance was not adjusted with inflation at that time. Thanks God now this problem is solved and it is now adjusted with inflation. I'll a little bit talk about this one by the end. And the third argument, the third findings is that
left. Sorry, I will quickly remind you that you have 1 minute left.
Sorry, am I? There's a time, right?
Yes. You have 1 to 2 minutes left.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll talk about the second argument a little bit about the current issues, so that not to take a lot of your time. Currently, Georgian government decided to adjust the pensions and the social protection with inflation. What does it mean? They call it indexation. It's already passed in the parliament, which means that when the inflation will go up, automatically pensions also will go up. And it is roughly calculated something like 20 lari. In case of the dollars, it's not that much, but still it is good and it's adjusted with inflation. Another good attribute of this is that for the people who are more than 70 years old, they pensions also adjusted with inflation now. But another interesting thing is that you know, if the Georgian economy will grow, let's say for 1%, so the pensions also will grow for the people who are 70 years and more by 80%, which is also very good signatures, you know. So here you may see some recommendation that I already mentioned. As I already taught, you know, during when we were making this research, one of the recommendations was that the pensions should be indexed, and it was, I think, 3rd of July that the Parliament of Georgia passed this law, and now our pensions are indexed. I mean, it is go in parallel with inflation, but still the problem is that it's, as I already mentioned, the social protection system just keeps the status quo. It does not take the person to new level, and this is the main findings of the research. And here you may see the recommendations. I don't want to spend the time just reading this. Hopefully you can read yourself later on if you're interested more. I can share my paper with you, or in discussions if there will be interesting questions, I will try to answer it. Thank you very much for my small presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And let's turn our floor over to Mr. Vaja Japashvili, who is the Deputy Director of Pension Agency of Georgia, as I already said. And I guess, and I hope he can share the interesting facts and regarding the system, new system of pension and the agency as well. And we will have the interpreter who will translate it from Georgian into English. ბატონო ვაჟა, მოგესალმებით კიდევ ერთხელ და თუ შეგიძლიათ რომ გაგვიზიაროთ თქვენი მოსაზრებები ბატონი აზერის პრეზენტაციასთან დაკავშირებით, ასევე ჩვენს ონლაინ დისკუსიაზე ნებისმიერი სახის რაც თქვენ გნებავთ, გისმენთ.
ხმა ჩართეთ შეიძლება, ბატონო ვაჟა.
მოგესალმებით, მივესალმები ყველა მონაწილეს. ძალიან სასიამოვნოა, როდესაც მონაწილეობას ვღებულობთ პირველ რიგში ჩვენი სამეზობლოდან ერთად აზერბაიჯანი, სომხეთი, საქართველო და როდესაც ამაში მონაწილეობას ვღებულობთ საერთაშორისო ორგანიზაციები და ჩვენს შესაძლებლობა გვეძლება ერთმანეთის ინფორმაციაც მოვისმინოთ და აგრეთვე გადავცეთ კიდევ სხვა საერთაშორისო ორგანიზაციებს ჩვენთან არსებული მდგომარეობა. თქვენ ეტაპობრივად უთარგმნით თუ როგორ დავაგეთ?
დიახ, ჩვენს თარჯიმანს რომ
თარგმნის?
არ გადათარგმნით. Mr.
Let me
Unfortunately, our translator has left us. Hi. Unfortunately, our translator has left us, and I think Azer will help us to interpret, and make a short summary after Mr. Vaja will finish his talk. Thank you.
Okay. I can translate, no problem, if you want.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Vaja says that it's very honored to be with us today, and especially it is very good that he participates in the panel where our neighbor countries like Armenia and Azerbaijan are participating. So he is glad to be here and take part in this interesting event.
მოხარული ვარ და სასიამოვნო იყო აზერბაიჯანის მიერ წარმოდგენილი ინფორმაციის მიღების და პრეზენტაციის ნახვის და სასიამოვნოა ეს ძვრები, რაც მიმდინარეობს თქვენს ქვეყანაში ამ მიმართულებით.
So he is happy to hear from the presentation that made about the Georgia social protection system from me, and hopefully we'll have some more details and the questions relating to the topics that I already a little bit explained.
საქართველოში მე რადგან წარმოვადგენ საპენსიო სააგენტო შეიქმნა წელიწადნახევრის წინ და ჩვენ ვახორციელებთ დაგროვებითი პენსიის ადმინისტრირებას.
So he says that he represents in Georgia the pension system of Georgia, which is created 1.5 years ago. And I forgot to mention about the accumulation pension system in Georgia that Georgia already started. And hopefully Mr. Vaja will talk about this part in more detail.
საპენსიო სააგენტოში მუშაობის დაწყებამდე 14 წელი ხელმძღვანელობდი სახელმწიფო პენსიის დეპარტამენტს სოციალური დაცვის სამინისტროში არადაგროვით პენსიას, რაც ჩვეულებრივი ასაკის და სხვა პენსიას, რაც შეეხება იმ სამსახურს.
So before he joined to accumulative pension system department in Georgia, he was working in the old pension system department. But now he's working in the new system, and in Georgia we pass it to new accumulative pension system. Okay, he will talk more about these issues.
საქართველოში აღნიშნული ახალი პროექტი დაგროვებითი პენსიის შესახებ სისტემა რაც არის და საპენსიო ფონდი რაც არის, ეს არის სიახლე და წარმატებით განხორციელდა და შეიძლება ითქვას ქვეყანაში ერთ-ერთი წარმატებული პროექტია დღეს დაგროვებითი საპენსიო სქემა საქართველოს მასშტაბით.
So accumulative pension system in Georgia is one of the successful projects that runs right now in Georgia, and it's already started, if I'm not making mistake, 1.5 years.
ვინაიდან სახელმწიფო და არამატო საქართველოს არამედ ნებისმიერი სხვა ქვეყანა ასეთი დაგროვებითი საპენსიო სისტემის გარეშე თითქმის ვერასდროს ვერ უზრუნველყოფდა მხოლოდ სოციალური დახმარებებით ან სახელმწიფო პენსიით მოხუცებულებს იმ ფულადი მასით, რომელიც იმ პერიოდისთვის საჭიროებს თითოეული ადამიანის უზრუნველ სიბერეს.
So Mr. Vaja says that without accumulative pension system, it's impossible to bring people out from the vulnerable social protected sloy of the people. And this is just the solution to bring these people out from this, from the vulnerable position. And it is effective, according to him.
აქედან გამომდინარე ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანია და შეიძლება ითქვას, რომ დაგვიანებულიც, რომ ნებისმიერ ქვეყანაში უნდა არსებობდეს ასეთი დაგროვებითი საპენსიო სქემა და უნდა გათვლილი, რაც გათვლილია გრძელვადიან პერსპექტივაში სტაბილურ, გარანტირებულ მოხუცებულობას.
We wish that all countries have such kind of accumulative pension system, which is dedicated to long run term and which is assures for the normal old age or retired people for the link it with the long time period and which assures for the quite old retirement.
მაგრამ მიუხედავად ამისა, თქვენც გააჟღერეთ ეს, რომ სახელმწიფოში უკვე შემუშავდა მიღებული იქნა კანონი იმის შესახებ, რომ ინფლაციას როგორ ებრძოლოს ჩვეულებრივი სახელმწიფო პენსიის მიმართულება და რაც ძალიან წინ გადადგმული ნაბიჯია და გარკვეულწილად სტაბილურობი იქნაც სოციალურ დახმარებებსა და სახელმწიფო პენსიაშიც სტაბილურობის განცდას უქმნის მოსახლეობას.
He mentions regarding my presentation where I mentioned that the pensions now are indexed with inflation, and he considers that as a great step forward for the stability of the social protection system in Georgia.
შეგახსენებთ, რომ ერთი წუთიდან 2 წუთამდე შეგვიძლია რომ კიდევ განვაგრძოთ. მადლობა.
და მინდა აღვნიშნო, რომ საქართველოში სოციალური დაცვის მიმართულებით, როგორც ეს საპენსიო მიმართულება იქნება, ეს თუ სხვა სოციალური დახმარებები, მაქსიმალურად ვთვლით, რომ ყველა სეგმენტი არის დაფარული, ვისაც შეიძლება მიეცეს როგორც დახმარებები, ასევე პენსიები, სადაც ჩართულია როგორც უწეო მდგომარეობაში მყოფი ოჯახები, გათვალისწინებულია შეზღუდული შესაძლებლობის პირები, მარჩენადაკარგულები, მაღალმთიან რეგიონში მცხოვრები პირები, დევნილები და ასე შემდეგ. ყველა სფეროზე არის დაფარვა და იმ სოციალური ინდექსაციაც, ანუ ლარის ინფლაციის გათვალისწინებაც ძალიან დროული იყო, რომ სტაბილურობის განცდა იყოს ქვეყანაში შექმნილი.
Mr. Vaja mentions that in Georgia social protection system tries to do maximum to cover all the slough of the population who are vulnerable, protect the refugees, protect the people who are living in the high mountain regions, and protect the vulnerable families. And one more time he mentions about the accumulated pension system and the pension indexation as a step to stabilize as a good step for the future for the long run.
თუ რამე კითხვები გექნებათ, შემიძლია უპასუხო კითხვებსაც და მადლობა თარგმანისთვის, დიდი მადლობა.
So thank you again. Now if anyone has any question, I'm sure that Mr. Azer as well as Mr. Vaja would be pleased to answer them. If you have the questions regarding Mr. Azer's presentation, so please.
I already wrote my question actually. Thank you for your presentation. If you could a little bit explain what do you mean by saying accumulative pension system?
Yeah. So let me first, maybe I will answer, but later, if you want, Mr. Vaja will answer because I think he's working there, but I will explain and then maybe he'll talk more in details. So accumulated pension system is a system, as I already mentioned, it is a normal in European Union. So it passed from our parliament. Let me now go in detail. So in detail, roughly, so government takes 3% from your salary as a tax, and he takes 3% from your employer. Let's say you are working somewhere, he takes 3% from you, 3% from your employer, plus he puts 3% himself. himself.
საქართველოს საპენსიო მაგალითს თუ უხსნით, მე შემიძლია ფორმულა გითხრათ, რომელიც უთარგმნოთ. თუ საქართველოზე კითხულობს, ხო?
დიახ. You will explain now in more detail.
როგორც კერძო, ასევე სახელმწიფო დასაქმებულები, სახელმწიფო სექტორის დასაქმებულებისთვის ერთნაირია ფორმულა. ამ შემთხვევაში არის 2+2+2, სულ ჯამში 6%-ია. 2% არის დასაქმებულის გროსიდან, იგივე ოდენობას დამსაქმებელი რიცხავს მის საპენსიო ანგარიშზე და შესაბამისი იგივე ოდენობის 2% საპენსიო სააგენტოს მოაქვს ბიუჯეტიდან. და ესე დგება 6%.
So it's like this. 2% is public or private organization is paying himself. 2% from the person employer itself, from his salary is deducted, and the 2% is the system itself is pays puts the money which is accumulated in the pensions, and you don't have right to take this money before you will be retired. Yeah, probably you know it.
საპენსიო ფონდში და შესაბამისი სარგებელი ერიცხება და ასე იზრდება მისი მოცულობა. 6%-ს ემატება აგრეთვე სარგებელი შემდგომში.
Yeah, it's all accumulated in the pension fund, and you know, after some period when you get retired, you can take this money. Also, some interest is going there, and you know, it's growing.
So thank you, Azer, and I'm so sorry that we made you so busy today, and for our technical
So
issues.
I'm not perfect translator, but
It was perfect. Thank you very much.
It was great. It was great. And actually, we're using another terminology. That's why I asked what is accumulative. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to introduce you next, Ms. Mira Antonyan, Associate Professor, Faculty of Sociology at Yerevan State University. And she will introduce the system of social protection in Armenia. So the floor is yours. Thank you. And you can share.
I hope I can share. Can you see my?
Yes, you can see. You can start.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, when my colleague from Georgia was talking about situation in social protection system in Georgia, I was ready to sign under every word, as it was so familiar and so. Everything is like the same, and lots of developments, but still lots of gaps and lots of I forgot this challenges actually. The situation is when you do some reforms or you implement one reform in one area, then it creates another problem for another area. And integrative approach will be one of course, subject for discussion in policymaking process as it is. I will not go deeply to save the time. I will not have many accent on processes that after Soviet Union breakdown happened in countries where we are coming from. We all know that consequences happens to all of us. Just to be short, I will bring some data on poverty and extreme poverty and unemployment rate in Armenia. And data is from 2014 and 2018. We see some, of course, positive changes, but the tendency is still, as you mentioned, is still the same. Quite different story on expenditure in social protection system, and we can see that each year from 1 to 6% we have some growth rate in expenditure for state, but majority of this expenditure actually, especially for pensions, like 65% of for pension, and the remaining amount is going for social services. For me, when you were mentioning about like challenges in a system and debates for how social protection system should division for social protection should be. I think one of main gap, maybe this is common for all other countries as well, is the lack of linkage. There is no bridge between social protection, different areas like monetary support and social services, where you do not support only people to survive, but actually you put your energy, you put your emphasis on activization of people who are in deprived situation for one or another region. And I think this gap, actually, it's about having social work thinking in making social policy, which we still are not there. And pillars actually for our social protection system are a social security system and benefit system and social services. When you first were talking about accumulative system, I was thinking, oh, maybe there is another approach that to accumulate really security system with benefit system, which is in our mind actually now, and that will make monetary services, monetary type of services linked to the social services, poor social services, in its meaning, like you work with people, you do not distribute something. You do not distribute just money, you do not distribute something like to live or to survive. You are working with these people, and you more have expenditure on that, helping people to overcome their problematic situation and to as confident as possible, which is still a discussion, and only small pilot projects are implemented now. I wish we can have it more. Coming to the trends and developments for the last 5 years, actually we are putting lots of attention and lots of energy was spent on structural changes in social protection governance and management system. And thank you for bringing this interesting idea that bringing together all administration of all type of social services creates another problem. I think this is process, and actually we are now trying to put together, and I'm more than sure that after a while there will be need to have separate approach in management, but for now I think this is very crucial to be effective in management system and in governing social protection services. For us, another trend that we can mention, this is professionalization of social service workforce. I know that in region, it's not in social workers association, different conferences, we are talking a lot about with our colleagues on this topic. Actually, it's not, even in administrating social services, you need professionalized people who know how to do management, not in general, but management in social services, because it's about working with beneficiaries and administration of that work. So for us, the organization of child care institutions, which is in process, and also demands actually another process of professionalization of social service workforce. Right now, revision of poverty reduction programs is another issue that we're trying to work with. Social contracting became quite an active process, but it still needs lots of future developments. For ICF disability assessment system, on October 1, I think in integrated services that they will be already implemented. They will start application of that new methodology of assessment of disability, and we finally will get out from understanding disability as something that disables you, but not being able to do something else. Gender equality promotion became quite, after revolution especially, became quite big issue for us. Other problems, actually, we still face problem for so-called undocumented poor. There are people, still some people who are mainly in extreme poverty and they are out of system. Maybe this is not big number, but still it is issue for us and it's really problematic. And we got a problem then when insufficient level of minimum social guarantees, when pension and other benefits and other allowances, etc., the amount of that allowances and monetary support is not balanced with minimum living standards, which is of course quite difficult scenario. Licensing and delegation of social services to non-profit organizations is, as I said, started, but it still needs more developments. Lack of comprehensive integrated social policy. It's interesting that social protection system is still understood as something that should be controlled, managed, designed, ideas should be developed only under Ministry of Labor and Social Issues. But in general, we know that it should be comprehensive and it should be integrated to other education, economy, agriculture, health, etc. Government started new, interesting, and quite progressive poverty reduction programs for individual decisions. But actually still programs are designed on administrative level and it's not balanced with individual needs of beneficiaries. So it's still, we are still, even for reduction in programs for poverty, we're still thinking about eligibility criteria. So way of thinking how people should be beneficiaries for social protection system remains the same post-Soviet, where you are thinking about eligibility criteria. Who should be there? Who should benefit from this or another program? While for poverty reduction programs, actually, you shouldn't look to the people who are, for example, beneficiary poverty benefit receivers, but people who live in poor situations. And it's quite different because poor people are much more, maybe 3 times more than those who are actually beneficiaries for poverty benefit. There is a gap between actually consumer basket and minimum standard guarantees, social guarantees that the government provides to the people. We need actually to finalize our minimum package for social services, like each citizen could receive, and it's not there yet. More effective usage of resources in the field, sometimes in not agreed activities, like from non-profit organizations, from government side, and from donors or from diaspora. Sometimes the coordination is quite there is lack of coordination, so it creates ineffective usage of existing resources. Besides, of course, in general, 1 minute, okay. Need for truth, tire licensing. So we need to not only to have just obligations for those who are providing social services, but also minimum standards on quality. Again, it's another gap. In adoption of law on social work, I know that Georgians already have this law. I know my colleagues from Georgian Association of Social Workers, they have some remarks on this law, but still the fact that law is existing, then you can make, of course, amendments, still positive, and I congratulate you because it is very promising that government already recognized that social policy is not social administration. It's about social administration plus social work. And the countries who don't recognize this, who don't put enough emphasis on this, will remain with lots of expenditure, with small positive changes in people's life. The goal should be changes in people's life, not the effective usage of money. And need to develop and apply social service standards, which is still in process. And thank you for your attention. I will be happy to answer any of your questions, even provocative questions. Let's be honest. Thank you very much.
Presenting your findings and important recommendations as well. And now if anyone has any question regarding this presentation, I'm sure Ms. Antonyan would be pleased to answer them.
Actually, I have one question, Ms. Mira. For example, in Georgia, when we are counting who should be considered as a socially protected and who not, sometimes there's some challenges. Some people are claiming that the methodology is wrong. Let's say that the family get one refrigerator, somebody presented, and the agents automatically count this person out from the list of the social protected person. And what kind of challenges you have in Armenia?
I will mention the same because we are using a special formula, which is like bringing together all data on your income, on your status, on your living conditions, etc. But fortunately, and we also argue a lot about these formulas, like they are not effective, they are not, lots of people are out of system, they need to be there, but they are really, in fact, they are poor, but they cannot prove that they are poor. But I think we nowadays tendency in changing in reforms in social protection system much more progressive in terms of not because you cannot, no system is perfect. Actually, you were mentioning European social protection systems. They also argue about their formulas. No system is perfect, but when the ideology or background or whole efforts in social protection system, the goal is not find poor people among poorest, but apply packages of services, apply aggressiveness to find beneficiaries, not only for those who will be getting some allowances from the state, but changing their life. For example, one can be not anymore monetary beneficiary. For example, they cannot get any more family poverty benefit, but instead, they are eligible, for example, for poverty reduction programs, like to get cow, to start some business, small business, whatever. So I think the main idea should be not arguing around formula, because formulas are always with problems, but about target. What is target? What is goal? What is the goal of your support? If you announce that 1/3 of population lives under poverty level, it means you have no big budget for distribution to the people. You always will have people who will be out of system. So I think that the talent here is not designing better formulas, but designing different projects that will help people to reduce their poverty, to be self-confident. I think here our discussion started on this basis, which I consider as a progressive one.
I agree.
Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Thank you for your questions and answers. If anyone has more questions, please. Okay, then we can turn over to Mr. Zohrab Ismayil. I will remind here, he's a PhD candidate, Hubert Humphrey Fellow, and he will present the key findings from the research, social protection and social security system in Azerbaijan. So Mr. Zohrab and Mrs. Mira, I would like to ask you to stop sharing your screen. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I would like also to thank Caucasus Civil Initiative Center to provide me this opportunity. In fact, I'm replacing my colleague in this event because my colleague who was the main researcher on this paper, Social Protection System in Azerbaijan, he couldn't attend to the event today. So I will try to replace him and also cover reforms, issues, problems regarding the social system in Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, social protection system somehow similar to neighbors, and also we see over the last 10 years lots of discussions about the reforms, but from time to time we see only the changing regarding the amount of pensions, amount of fees providing as a social assistance. And only a few years ago, we see the little bit fundamental reform tools. We only started after 2014. And as you know, Azerbaijan is one of the most oil-dependent countries in the world, and in 2019, oil sector generated approximately 40% of total GDP, and also oil revenues accounted for 60% of the state budget. And so when Azerbaijan has some problems related to incomes and oil prices, the government takes more attention to reforms, and including social reforms. And in general, Minister of Labor and Social Protection implements state policy on labor relations, labor protections, use of labor resources, and provides social protection, including pensions and social insurance. And so there is Azerbaijan social protection system also regarding the pension, little bit complicated system. And we know also that my colleagues mentioned, those colleagues from Georgia mentioned that, for example, accumulative savings system in Georgia. And but in Azerbaijan, the idea is concept of reform of the pension system. 2014-2020. Initiate that to use more major mechanisms for provide more opportunities, and use also accumulative system and also solidarity system. And so, and there is the insurance part of pension, and also there is a saving part. So it is the idea is to protect also those people who didn't have a job, and also or had small salaries. And but in general, I don't know, this system, we always wait reforms. Every year the government talks about the new issues related to pension system, but main issue is increasing is insurance part, the minimum part of pension from time to time, and there is also mechanisms, and if the indexation of pensions, but also you may know that in 2015 we had the 2 times devaluation, and so in fact it decreased real amount of pensions and also salaries. So last year the government increased also minimum wage to 250 manats, and also increased minimum pension. And second issue, unemployment issue in Azerbaijan, and the government claims that we have 5% unemployment rate. And but during this pandemic, from March until June, the government also decided to provide some money to unemployment people, because it is also difficult, like in Armenia and Georgia, to prove that you are unemployment, you don't have job, and also this status, to getting this status is not easy. So in the beginning of March this year, we had approximately 900,000 people who got this status. But in fact, the government also accept that unemployment people is much more, 250,000, something like. But when the government started to register this unemployment people, and more than 600,000 people have been registered. So also the government, in the beginning, government considered to provide only for 200,000 unemployment people. But in fact, the government provided the fee, one-time fee, and 190 manats. It is the more than approximately $110, and for 600,000 people. And it was somehow the government accepted that unemployment rate more than 10% in Azerbaijan. And also the government provided 3 months in April, May, and also in June. Those amount to 600,000 people. So, and over the last few years, we also saw the very important reform in social protection. You may know that we also have the targeted state social assistance, and it started 2015, and but recently government also established new entity. It is the Sustainable and Operational Social Security Agency. It is the short name is DOS. It is in English the Friend Centers, and it was established in 2018, and those centers provide more than 100 services to citizens in the field of social protection and security, employment, and labor market. It was the more visible and significant reform over the last 5 years. It is, and also regarding the financing, pension system, especially pension system.
Please, let me remind you of the time. 1 or 2.
Yeah, just for 3-4 minutes, I will conclude. Just we have pension fund, and the money and the resource of pension fund is generating from taxes, from social taxes, and also every year the government allocates from budget additional part for pensions, for pension fund. Pension fund also the part of the total. I mean the summary budget of the country. And I just want to pass the main problems. The main problems, of course, the current structure of social insurance premium rate, and or the fact that main part of burden on the payment of insurance premiums falls on employment leads decrease in activity of the uninsured. It is not actually the clear. There are also the several factors negatively affect the solvency of pension system in Azerbaijan. The current level of ratio between the number of participants of pension system is unsuccessful. And also the problems related to I mean the government also from time to time increase the pension age, and it is the one of problematic issues, and we see that several years before we saw the number of pension receivers, retired people increased, so the government decided to cut this this number to increase the pension age. And also recently the government cut the fees for newborn kids. It is the big. I think that Azerbaijan one of few countries in our region, and the newborn kids don't receive parents cannot receive fees for newborn kids, and also for kids in particular age. And of course, the main issue in Azerbaijan, main problem is transparency. And so we have also some recommendations related to Chamber of Account, the super audit institution, to take more attention in pension fund, and also the government also did some issues. This, for example, the agency, new created agency, also one of purposes was to increase transparency, and also people, because if system is not electronic, and also people cannot get more information from electronic government tools. So it is that there should be a huge risk for the corruption. So I don't know. I tried somehow to cover this this topic, and also if you have any question, the particular question, I can respond.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting the findings. So if anyone has any question.
I have one, if I may. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to make sure I understood truly about these children's allowances for parents. You said they cannot receive money until some ages, or is it about maternal capital? What do you mean?
This is the money. This is the money for we call it the fee for kids. For example, in different countries, parents receive in a particular, for example, within 3 years, or in Russia, for example, in Ukraine, this is for newborn children. And so it was in the past, Azerbaijani citizens, they could receive some money for newborn kids, but in particular time. It was also the one-time payment for some time, and also was for some years. But we don't have this payment anymore. And a few years before, it was the last year the government decided to stop it. And the idea of the argument of the government is that only those countries pay fee for newborn kids. They are interested in to increase population. So they decided that we don't need it. Yeah, but also that in for example, targeted state social assistance, it is also very complicated in Azerbaijan. It was the very promoted system the 15 years before the government started. But I think it is also, it's not efficient also, because it's very difficult to prove that you need this assistance. And also, for example, if you have, for example, some broken car, or just maybe a new television at home, you cannot receive it. So it is and also the main problem also during pandemic in Azerbaijan was that the government doesn't have data about poor people, about people who unemployment people, and also about population, because it was also very difficult how to provide this fee to unemployment people, because there is not like system. For example, in Georgia, there is personal number, and also all people have bank accounts, which is in bank account you the government agencies or banks or different government structures can identify who is who by the personal number. But we don't have such system so far.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like you already mentioned, the neighbors have so many similarities due to these problems. Like Ms. Mira Antonyan mentioned, undocumented poor. That's what Mr. Zohrab also mentioned about the government of Azerbaijan. They don't have the special relevant data to document and to identify the numbers. So my first question would be next. What are the main challenges? What are the first steps to be made to advocate to government by non-governmental organizations or the researchers like academics itself? And if we talk about the challenges, it seems necessary to discuss like the first steps and solutions to be made. Mr. Azer, if you would like to answer the question.
Sure. Thank you very much for your question. Concerning on the, I will start from the back. Of course, the role of the NGOs is huge because from one side, they can somehow help the government to implement some big projects, because it's really sometimes difficult for the government to do all the spheres at the same time, and some NGOs can really assist from that side. At the same time, you know, NGOs actually can be some tool that will show the transparency of how the money is spent on some projects concerning our social protection system. You know, in Georgia there is a lot of NGOs, and I'm sure that you know, they are strictly controlling how the even one lari from the budget is spent on social protection and etc.
And research institutions as well. I mean, research institutions and research community, academy, etc.
Unfortunately, the academia is not so involved. Generally, in Georgia, the methodology are imported from the Europe. So they say that, okay, works perfectly in Europe and can work in Georgia, and later on there comes implementation. Sometimes, despite of the fact that it is good, effective, but sometimes it can create some problems, because Georgia is unique, and we have our own traditions, we have our own view on the life, and the same methodology that works, for example, in Europe, sometimes can have problem working here in Georgia. And this is where actually the academia can, and the NGOs, of course, can help to solve such kind of problems in case of the Georgia. But what I see from my side is that, unfortunately, maybe I don't know, but you know, I am working in the university in academic sphere. I see that the academicians are less involved, particularly, for example, in social protection system, you know, development. Maybe the problem that I see really challenging right now is the methodology. We changed it already 3 times or 4 times methodology, but still there is a problem. Who are really concerned about the methodology, who criticizing this. And I think that if the academic will involve it on the development of the methodology, the particular methodology that fit for the Georgian population needs, I think it will be, you know, the step forward.
Thank you so much for your answer. If anyone wants to answer the question of, or our panelist has any questions?
Just can you repeat the question? Question was there for all region or for Georgia?
It was for all region, and to all the panelists like to conclude the challenges we have identified this discussion. If we talk about the challenges, I think it's necessary to discuss what are the first steps and solutions, and what can contribute, like academic, like researchers or NGOs, to this to make like solutions to these challenges and problems identified throughout these researches.
Yes, of course. I absolutely agree with Azer that every country has own social problems. We just can learn each other and take lessons from different reforms, from different also crises, and also the positive steps. But in general, of course, every country should choose, find own way to development, also to for the social protection, because we see that from time to time many countries just overlap of different experiences from Europe, from neighbors, from Russia, from different countries. But unfortunately, it is one thing which work in Georgia maybe cannot work in Azerbaijan, in Armenia. So that's why the main, of course, the decision makers should learn experiences and best practices, international practices, and also practices of best practices of neighbor countries, because we all emerged from former Soviet Union. We have very similar problems, and also so decision makers should learn each other. But of course, in the decision process, in the policy, every country should implement and implement its own policy, because the situation and the situation anyway is different in all three countries, because some, for example, some reforms in Armenia began many years before, but in Azerbaijan a few years before, and that's why it is there. And also some, for example, Georgia has done many reforms. You know that over the last 15-20 years, but also in several countries we see the the counter-revolution, and to backing and to stopping some reforms, and also returning back. So anyway, all countries should choose own policy, own way, but it is important to learn each other and also from neighbors.
Okay, thank you. If anyone has any question, I will ask once again, or if you want to mention something.
Some comment from my side.
Okay.
I think this is actually a very interesting initiative, and we benefit always from this kind of discussions. It's like exchanging some experience, listening to others, and actually looking to your situation from another point of view. And I think we should find some opportunities to continue working on this initiative. And what are the areas of interest, or what areas could be areas of interest for all three countries? I think listening to my colleagues from Georgia and Azerbaijan, I think one of topic for debates could be interesting topic for each individual country, each country in individual level, but also for joint discussions. We could initiate debates in our countries on unfair level of unfairness of social protection system, and how to make researchers could help to identify the understanding of unfairness, And this can be public discussion, of course, but based on some research results, how people understand unfairness, how beneficiaries themselves understand already who are eligible to get something from the state, how they understand unfairness, and how those who are out of system, how they understand what is their imagination about unfairness. Another issue could be activation. Azer was mentioning about dependence created among people who are receivers, allowance and benefit receivers. And as you very truly mentioned, this is true for our situation also, that people who are long time in a system and they will never go out because of some formulas. They can prove their poor situation and then can be always in a system, makes really problematic their situation, all family members' situation. Having in mind that activation is a key word here, that but we need to elaborate some more as a researchers how this terminology activation, how we understand activation, how people who are receivers, who are in a system, how they understand what is activation, and somehow find a way to raise voices of service users or beneficiaries of the social protection system and analyze how they understand and then make some recommendations for governments how their activation programs should be, how they should design their activation programs for activation of people and somehow break this dependency from the system. And another thing could be people living in their regular life using their own support networks. Without social protection system, usually we are like as a common thing for Caucasus people. This is like living with neighbors, support, helping each other, then helping in so-called natural support networks. We could see how strong they are and influences of last developments on networks, social support networks, natural social support networks, see how they changed, and see traditions that make, still keeps people together and makes natural support networks stronger. How policies can help these networks to strengthen networks. I just wanted to integrate ideas that Azer and Ismail mentioned, that it's really problematic when we try to do everything via social protection, so-called formal system. It will not work in our situation, and you are right, I agree with you. But I think for researchers, an interesting topic could be, okay, how they change, these networks are changed in nowadays, and how policies can make these networks stronger instead of making them more like break.
Anyone has any comments, or we can like to conclude our discussion. I will try to make a short conclusion that we, like our researchers and our distinguished panelists have identified several changes. For instance, for Georgia, like increased financing of social protection system in nominal and percentage should be considered as a problem, and system needs to change into more complex policies, like Mr. Azer has mentioned, and the system should include both economic and social policies. And in Armenia, we have like undocumented poor and unbalanced coverage of social services and insufficient level of minimum social guarantees, and etc. For Azerbaijan, the all dependent should be considered as a challenge, like Mr. Zohrab has mentioned. The problem of insurance, increased pension age, and the huge problem of the transparency and the lack of e-governance and data. So I would like to thank all of you, our distinguished panelists, our guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again to the Caucasus Civil Initiative Center and the Black Sea Trust, of course, for the financial support. I would like to thank all of you and for your active participation and for your interesting presentations. I hope you enjoy our online discussion. So thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for conducting interesting panel.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Have a nice day.